And welcome, speaker. How are you?
Hey, how are you?
Good, good. Are you ready to go?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, so here we go. And so, there are at this point 50 people on this, as attendees, as well as the folks on the screen. And for everyone to understand, this people you see on the screen work together to develop the questions we're going to broach. And the speaker has seen the questions. And we also have added a couple of questions for him at his request at the end of the conversation. So thank you for giving us this time, Mr. Speaker. We realize that you have serious time constraints, and so we would like to structure this conversation kind of tightly so we can secure like a 1 or a 2 minute response to a question, leaving us the opportunity to follow up and
Yeah,
ask
Paul, I
maybe.
think what I'd really like to do is, we've done, we've kind of done the interview format before on your show, and with Senators Worth and Stewart. We are halfway through the session, and bills are moving. Some things are, really picking up steam, and instead of kind of doing a laundry list of my views on certain things, I would really love to have this be an opportunity for me to hear from you guys about a couple of things that are really moving along, and ask to get some help getting some of these things over the finish line, and kind of talking about strategy for how to get things achieved. And because we are sort of at that point, right, when we're starting to send stuff over to the Senate. We're starting to get stuff from them, and we are tomorrow. Well, by this time, the governor will have sitting on her desk Senate Bill 10 to repeal the abortion ban. So that's exciting. But we have something else in the House that I think would be of interest to your group and to your folks, that I'd love to know what you guys think about it, and see if you can help me with it. That's House Bill 47, which is a bill on medical aid in dying. That is in my view, a massively important piece of legislation. It's come up every year for the last several years, and we've been unable. We were able to get it over to the Senate once, and it failed there. We've had tight votes here. Our vote count is incredibly close on the floor. We're not sure if we are at 34 or 35 members. Of course, we need 36 for it to pass. This is legislation that allows physicians to prescribe a dose of medication so that a terminally ill patient who is of sound mind can, as we say, die with dignity. And I'm curious if you guys have taken a position on that, and
One of our
so,
transformational bills.
yeah. So we really need help, and we are trying to decide if we're going to call it up for a vote tomorrow or Monday. But we're kind of to the point where we need to, fish or cut bait. And so are you guys able to make phone calls and send emails and engage with maybe the whole House, because it's out of committee, it's on the floor. What do you think? I'd love to have your help. We're calling in all the favors we can, and we're calling in all the folks to support it, especially with direct member contact, to let them know how important it is.
Well, that's a transformational bill of ours. We certainly can try and lend you a hand with this. And as a favor back, I know you have an agenda for your conversation that you want to share with us, as you stated, but we do too. And there's some of these bills are going to be bills where you have a significant amount of leverage. And so maybe we can get through them a little more quickly. And then we can devote as much time as you like towards the end to whatever, updating us on those things. I mean, we're not really that interested in talking about how the SB 10 is going to the governor's desk, because we knew that was going to happen 2 months ago or in June. And so if it's all right with you, at least let us get through a couple of these bills, and then we can move on. Is that all right?
Fire away.
Okay. So when we last spoke, you stated that the goals of a public bank can more easily be achieved by creating a fund. You also asserted that a state bank would compete with community banks. But we
Yes.
think there are important advantages to a public bank over creation of a fund. Most importantly, a bank can leverage our equity up to 10 times the proposed state deposit of $50 million. And so a fund does not have that capacity. I'll cut short, there is, we're not asking the state to go into uncharted territory because there's evidence of how effectively a state bank can work with community banks and credit unions in North Dakota. So with that information, where do you stand with the state public bank?
I think it is really challenging when the rubber hits the road to access for a state bank to access the Federal Reserve overnight lending window and other things to subject itself to FDIC or Office of the Comptroller of Currency regulation to be able to try to do the leveraging of deposits into expanded lending. I think we probably need buy-in from the administration, the financial institutions division. I think we need to have buy-in from the executive because they're going to be the ones that would have to implement it, get it to work. I've said that I do not support something that would be in competition with our homegrown community banks. And so if it can be done in a way that is not competitive to them, but is supportive of their mission, then I support it. We this morning, I don't know if it was an updated FIR, but it was flagged for us. Somehow it did not come up when it was first referred. The bill contains a $50 million general fund appropriation. So we're having to send the bill to the Appropriations Committee. I am required to do that by rule. There is zero discretion on that. I am talking to the sponsor about dropping the referral to the Judiciary Committee so that it could go straight from, I think it was state government or commerce. Right? It's in commerce, right? So we go straight from commerce to the Appropriations Committee without a pit stop along the way in judiciary. So I do have some questions. I haven't read the bill. I am I think Paul, this was I was the first legislator and one of the first New Mexicans to be leading on this issue back in 2009 when I started the effort to move the state's money and carried the bill to create a state bank and worked with Craig Barnes and his group for years, worked with the group in the city of Santa Fe to try to make this happen. So I support the concept and I want to have it done in a way that doesn't compete with locally owned small community banks.
Okay, well, I can assure you they won't compete with
Okay.
community banks, and we can have
Good.
a further conversation about that. But we've heard from several legislators that they are concerned about launching a major initiative like the Health Security Plan and Design. And we've also heard from one Democratic representative that her preference is to fund other health initiatives that would provide more immediate relief to people experiencing health security. You have a track record for supporting prior efforts to pass earlier versions of the HSA. Will you be speaking with members of your caucus and most specifically Representative Lundstrom about ensuring that this bill moves forward through the House and gets scheduled in House appropriations?
We will work to get it scheduled in appropriations. I support the bill. And the health committee members and health leaders in the House, like Liz Thompson and Debbie Armstrong, play a big role in shaping the contents of that bill. She's the chair of our health committee for a reason. She's an expert there. And so I really rely on her. This is not anywhere close to a field of expertise for me. So I've supported it in the past at her urging and suggestion. I'll continue to do so.
Okay, so we can keep that one quick. We're happy to hear what you said. Local choice energy would allow jurisdictions and tribes to manage their own energy use, either by creating a bond to develop their own renewable energy transmission capacity or to purchase it from the market. This would allow, for example, for our city of Santa Fe to exit from PNM's energy mix and develop or purchase our own 100% renewable It has been argued that utility lobbyists, that managing a city's utility is too complex for a city to manage. Yet the city of Santa Fe assumed responsibility for exiting P&M's management of its water, and they have managed that water very effectively. Given this, would you support the Local Choice Energy Act?
Yeah, sure. But it's occurring to me right now. I mean, are we not able to do it under current law? I know the city of Farmington owns and operates its own utility, power utility. Santa Fe used to. Is that not something that we can do now?
I'm pretty sure not. I mean, otherwise, I'm not sure why people would be bringing forth this legislation.
I don't know. I do know that in the city of Farmington, they're not on P&M. They have their own.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that's fine. I always kind of chuckle that one of the most conservative cities in the state has a socialized electricity system. But,
Yes.
so yeah, I think it's fine.
If
So
we
let's
have
get an
time,
answer. Let's get an answer for him and get it to him.
yes, if there's somebody on the chat that has an answer for that, please write it in. And maybe can one of the panelists, our panelists, be looking for that, because trying to do that while I'm doing this is kind of difficult. Quick question on the permanent fund. There are two education-related joint resolutions being advanced in the House and Senate, SJR1 and HJR1, with HJR1 calling for voter approval for investing permanent funds in early childhood, 1% increase, and SJR calling for investing permanent funds in K-12. I've heard that a bargain might be struck to split the 1% investment between early childhood and K-12. Have you heard this, and how do you feel about that?
That won't happen. Well, 1% for early childhood is the baseline. I've been consistent. Anything that would go for K-12 is great, but it goes on top of the 1%.
All right, but you're hitting home runs all over the place today, Speaker. One last question on our.
What else is new?
Hey, just yesterday I found the button you gave me for when you were running for rep.
Good looking button.
Good looking button. All right. I've been told you think
I got these two in my desk. There we go, Andrea, and there we go.
I got both of them. I've been told you think SJR3 is not necessary because Article 20, Section 21 already protects environmental rights. But looking at the language, it actually entrusts environmental protection to the highly partisan legislature and focuses them on pollution control rather than prevention of harm. And the Sanders-Reed case makes it clear that Section 21 does not create or recognize enforceable environmental rights with clear obligations defined by the law rather than the legislators themselves. While HB 4, if passed, might allow good additional enforcement options, SJR 3 will create environmental rights guided by well understood objective. How do you feel about that? And then you're going to want to talk about.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever said that we don't need it. I pointed out that we have, an environmental provision in the Constitution, but I have not taken a position against the Green Amendment. I have not been following the resolution. I do have questions, as a litigator myself, I think of these sorts of things in terms of who sues and who gets sued to enforce it.
Mm-hmm.
And I have that question about this, if you have a right to free speech, right? It says, Congress shall make no law abridging the right of speech. So, the defendant in a lawsuit is obviously government, right? If they're restricting your right to speech, right? Or, the Bill of Rights constrains the state in favor of individual civil rights and civil liberties. It's not clear who would be, I'm sure there's an answer. I just don't know about if the Green Amendment were to be adopted. Against whom is it enforced? Is it enforced against the state? Do private individuals sue polluters? I'm just not sure exactly how the litigation would be set up. But the concept is great.
I'm 95% sure that the legislation or the amendment to the Bill of Rights, to our Bill of Rights, would allow action against the government. And it wouldn't be to seek money. It would be to force them to take action. For example, if they weren't protecting the environment in some or enforcing regulations and so forth, then people could take action against the government to do so. So in that context, do you feel pretty comfortable with that?
I think so. I kind of nerd out on the law part of it and just how these cases would be set up. But like I said, the concept I think is fine. And I
Okay.
just, if it gets over to us, we'll have a good chat about how the litigation is shaped up. Because I know other states have something similar. So I'm sure they would give
It's
a
a
lesson
good
on
short
what it looks like.
comment from Maya Van Rossum on the chat for anybody who's interested about exactly this.
Okay. Thank you, David. Hey, we're sailing along, so you're going to get like 10 or 15 minutes to tell us what we need to do to help in the legislature. This is the last one. New Mexico has the opportunity to conduct redistricting in an independent and nonpartisan manner. This act is designed to improve openness, transparency, and fairness in political redistricting and is aligned with the Voting Rights Act. While the commission will draw up 3 to 5 sets of redistricting maps, the legislature will make the final selection. Do you support this legislation, and how can Democrats help pass the redistricting commission bills and still elect a Democrat in CD2?
I don't support the bill. I am opposed to it. And I've been very clear for a long time. I think that it puts at unacceptable peril a woman's right to choose, environmental protection, fairness in taxation. It puts at tremendous peril all of the progressive causes that we care about. I one time asked a leader in the League of Women Voters, I posed the question, if you were to know that passing independent redistricting would result in the recriminalization of abortion in New Mexico in the absence of Roe versus Wade, would you still support independent redistricting? And the immediate answer was no. And I have lived through the House of Representatives in the minority, and I saw what happened when we were in the minority. And I think we should be approaching this topic with much more skepticism of the motives of the minority party right now for why they want to do this, and with the possible consequences. And I feel like we've worked too hard to make tremendous progress. But if we had a 36, 34 House of Representatives, even with us in the majority, we were 38, 32 for that period. If we were at 38, 32, we never would be able to pass a decriminalization of abortion. Straight up. We would never be able to pass the Green Amendment to the Constitution. We would never be able to pass the bill to create a private right of action to enforce our state's environmental laws, which we're about to do in the House in about a week. We would never be able to do any of the things like aid in dying. All of the transformational bills that are on your list would be in the wastebasket. Narrow majorities, because what will happen is you'll still have within a 38, 32 or 37, 33 majority, 39, 31 majority, you'll still have 8 to 10 Democrats elected from more conservative areas of the state, and the agenda goes out the window. So I don't support it. I also really kind of scratch my head about why, when conservatives and Republicans are in control of redistricting, they do everything in their power and push every limit that can possibly be pushed to protect their partisan position in a state, and look at the results we get. I don't understand why Democrats want to unilaterally disarm and give advantage to the people that are trying to make the world a dirtier place, take rights away from people, make it harder to vote. All the things that we oppose, I don't want to make it easier for them to do it.
Well, I thank you for your candor. I know that there are at least a couple of us on this panel who have, I wouldn't say share that view completely, but certainly understand it. And then there are others who very much think this is the right time to do the right thing. But I certainly understand your logic. And
You know, we are going to bring, I think, quite a bit more transparency to the process than we had 10 years ago. We learned, I think, Monday that the data set from the census is going to be delayed. We won't even have the data till September 30. And then there's usually 60 at least days that are required to process the data, load it into the systems. So we're looking at starting redistricting probably not until December, but we're still going to have hearings around the state to at least learn about communities of interest and get some input. And then we'll have a session here in Santa Fe where the maps will be drawn. And by December, I mean, if we're not able to have a full, open, regular legislative session, you know, then we're in trouble. But, you know, that'll be, you know, we'll be kind of be back to normal, knock on wood, by then. And, you know, there's other things that we've done outside of the redistricting context to bring transparency and openness, you know, whether it's expanding the Inspection of Public Records Act, strengthening the Open Meetings Act, to, you know, we created the Independent Ethics Commission, which, you know, I'm happy to be the first one to take that out for a spin in the legislature to see how that works. If you read the paper today, you know, I'm involved over there. You know, so there's all these things now that are happening that I think are all for the better, all positive.
We've covered the questions we really felt like we needed to do. And so I want to give you a little bit of time to let us know, you know, where things stand and where you see bills that are going to, like you did with the life. We want to find out about end of life options, you know, where that are really in crunch time, difficult.
Someone says something about me cherry picking something in the chat. I'm not sure what they're talking about.
I saw it. It basically what they're saying is that that's from Kathleen Burke from the redistricting group, the Fair Vote, I think is the name, Fair Districting. And her comment is that you're elected to pass to support the platform, and that's in the Democratic Party platform, redistricting commission. But so that's what her intent is.
Okay. Well, you know, I respect the platform and I respect the views that folks have about redistricting. I just, you know, I think the only person that you're ever going to agree with 100% is yourself if you're lucky, right? And you know, I think it's better for you to hear, you know, where I am coming from honestly, and I'm not shy about sharing my views. You know, I think I'm pretty, you know, I'm very proud of the record, especially in the last 2 years with a Democratic governor. I am extremely proud of the progressive record. This legislature, especially the House, is among the most progressive legislative chambers in the country. And what we're doing is setting up models for other states to follow, whether it's Nevada, Virginia, California have picked up things that we've done and have used them to advance, you know, a very pro-worker, pro-family agenda. And I'm really proud of what we've done overall. I don't, obviously, I'm not going to agree with every single thing that's in the Democratic Party platform. And, you know, to the extent I've got constituents that want to ask me about that, I'm happy to answer and explain my views. And I've always had the feeling that, you know, you're not going to get 100% agreement between a legislator and a constituent, but what constituent, and I don't think it's realistic for constituents to expect that I'm going to agree with them or that they're going to agree with me on 100% of everything. But what I do think is realistic to expect of your legislator is for me to explain, you know, why I've reached the decision that I've reached, and to, you know, defend my votes that I take, and hear conflicting views or opposing ideas with respect and courtesy. And that's how um, I don't dismiss the views about independent redistricting, and I'm not in favor of outrageous gerrymandering. I mean, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that until we have something that can be uniformly applied across the country in a fair way, I think it is very, very risky. And I place issues like women's access to abortion care, like clean water, clean air, like progressive taxation. We're about to do a big change in New Mexico's personal income tax. We are expanding the low income tax credit, LICTR, the working families tax credit. We're expanding, we're making our tax code much more progressive. I place those at a very, very high level. And I think before I want to risk those, I want to make sure that we're approaching that, from a way that prioritizes the issues in the order of greatest importance to the greatest number of people.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the intent to raise the LICTR and expand the working families tax and so forth. So
Chairman Martinez introduced that bill today. I think it's 298. You could check, you could look up Javier Martinez, but that bill was introduced today.
You knew it was coming today.
And then there's a chat about something about competition with community banks, and why I think that. The reason I think that is community bankers have expressed that. So when I first carried a bill to create New Mexico's public bank, I think it was in 2010 or 11, the opposition to the bill was primarily community banks. And so that's why I say that is, I brought the bill year after year after year after year after year, and the opponents were always the community bankers. And this was like 6 years ago or 7 years ago, so things may have changed.
Yeah,
that's why.
There was a 4-hour hearing yesterday on this, or the day before, and I must admit, after listening to the proponents of the public bank, I'm mystified as to how the community banks feel that they would be competed with. Especially given that North Dakota has the highest percentage of community banks in the nation, because they work cohesively with the state public bank. But, when it gets to you, I'll have more conversation with you about that. But they are definitely strongly opposed, and I don't get it. So anyway, what else do you want to tell us?
So 3 bills to mention as we're wrapping up. The New Mexico Civil Rights Act. The other party is trying to throw a bunch of stuff up to discourage me and to distract me. But I think increasing access to justice and making the New Mexico Bill of Rights something that can be enforced for the protection of the people of our state is critically important. It's going to be in the Senate Health and Public Affairs Committee, then Judiciary. I'm hoping that will move quickly through the Senate, but I would love to have your help in contacting members of the Senate there. We've got House Bill 9. It's the climate change bill that I'm co-sponsoring with Representative Melanie Stansbury. That is encountering some headwind for budget reasons. We are today, I am working with Patty Lundstrom and Nathan Small, my chair and vice chair of the Appropriations Committee. We are, I believe, I think we're going to be able to substantially increase the budgets for the Environment Department and the Energy Department, which will make enforcement easier, but it also make enforcement much, much better, but will also allow for more fulsome and rapid adoption of rules, specifically with adoption of the methane rule. I'm working with Peter Worth on his bill to delete the language in our state environmental laws that require the New Mexico environmental laws to be no more stringent than their federal counterparts, which is a huge problem. That's been a big roadblock in regulating methane emissions. So we're working to get that repealed, and then following up with this additional funding so that we can get rulemaking done in the Environment Department and the Energy Department to deal with methane emissions. That's very important to me. House Bill 9 is going to be up for its next committee soon, and we'll be working on that. And House Bill 50. This is a bill that I started carrying in 2009. It's finally, I think, got some legs. And this will allow for a private right of action when state government is refusing or is unwilling or unable to, for some reason, to enforce our state's environmental laws against polluters. It would allow a private individual to bring a case in district court to be basically a private attorney general or private counsel to enforce our state's environmental laws and to also force the state to take notice and to take action. That's going to be heard in Judiciary Committee, I believe, tomorrow. And we're looking forward to getting that bill to the floor. So those three are I think, very much alive and well and moving forward and adjust or address equality. They will address the climate and address emissions, and in all in very immediate and concrete ways. So we'd love to have your help with phone calls and emails as House Bills 4, 9, and 50 make their way through. Those are among my priorities to get done and to get to the floor of the House and over to the Senate.
Well, all three of
hopefully
those are
next week.
priority bills, and when we send out our alerts, we alert people about those bills, give them speaking points and so forth, and contact information for their legislators. So we will continue to do that and strongly support those bills. And if you have a closing comment or any closing remarks,
Well, I appreciate you guys being engaged, and I appreciate you guys doing what you do to keep members of the legislature informed and to keep your colleagues informed. We've got 30 days. This is when, in some ways, this is when the session really starts. We are ahead of schedule in so many areas, which is good, but we are not going to take our foot off the gas until we're done with the session. So
okay. Well,
thanks, guys.
thank you very much. And
Nice to see you, Sharon.
it does seem like we're going to be getting some very good bills through. It's so great that the abortion decrim or repeal ban is going to pass, and the health security, I think it has a very good chance, and certainly early childhood funding. And these aren't things that we've been able to get up that mountain in the past. So thank you for your service.
Sure.
Thank you for your time, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Bye-bye.
Well, folks, what do you think?